Now they can hear us. Mic check. We'll be starting in around 1 minute. Just doing a quick audio check. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, what a fantastic morning. Good morning all. Thank you for attending this morning's event. I'm Matthew Bater. I'm supported today by one of our cloud consultants, Hugh Valentine. This morning's event will be based around Microsoft SharePoint Teams and the Power Apps that reside within the Office 365 technology sets and the potential impact these can have on your organizations. There will be an introduction for myself and Hugh. We'll then walk through a poll, some demonstrations. There'll be a question and answer session at the end of the event, so please log your questions via the windows that are provided to you. Recent studies have shown that over 68% of small, medium enterprises expect their operations to change as a result of the COVID-19 outbreak. There has certainly been a shift in mindset to that of further adoption of cloud technologies to operate normal day-to-day services, such as file sharing, communications, email, and collaboration, and all for the purpose to drive forward change and improvement within those business. The value of collaboration in today's remote working can't be underestimated. A large percentage of the businesses we help adopted new systems, new ways of working. This will continue, we believe, when all companies turn to a normal working condition. As for the most, they are operating now to a better standard than before. Collaboration tools really become effective when they're fully integrated into applications that people use on a day-to-day basis to communicate, create, and collaborate, such as Office, Microsoft Office. These tools allow your organizations to provide better customer experiences with the key touch points within your organization, employees having access to the key data and at the right times. From an employee perspective, it needs to be simple, easy to use, and backed with IT control, security, and compliance. A lot of the organizations we're dealing with day to day now want to reduce the dependency on inefficient paper-based processes by implementing a modern set of tools that can automate these processes, reducing needless duplication of work between departments. The services need to be accessible anywhere and anytime from multiple devices that people use in their personal and professional lives. So they want access at different times of the day on the device they choose. It also needs to be familiar and transparent for the user and employee. This brings us to Office 365 and the applications within that suite of products. So applications such as SharePoint, Teams, Power Applications, OneDrive, these applications are designed to ease the burden of IT and sharing information out, irrespective of location and device. Office 365 can be the next stage for your business systems. That summarizes my introduction today, and I'll hand you across to Hugh to tap further into the product sets and run through this morning's agenda.
Thank you, Matthew. So, yeah, the agenda that we'd like to cover off today, we're going to cover off the licensing. So there's been some changes recently with the Microsoft 365 licensing, just so we make it clear about what those changes are. We're then going to jump into SharePoint and show an overview of that platform and how that can help your organization. Microsoft Teams, the Power Platform, which includes Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI. We'll then be looking to wrap up with providing some useful resources and then answering any questions that you might have. We will be recording this webinar, so this can be uploaded, and we'll share this after the event if you're not able to stay or if you've got colleagues that weren't able to attend. The takeaways for today are to understand how the licensing works, get a good overview of Microsoft 365 and SharePoint, some useful resources to get started, and obviously answer your questions that you have about the platform as well. So a quick poll to get started, which obviously looks like it's already jumped in with some values, but if we, I don't think I can reset this, but if we go to the pollev.com/Hugh Valentine 734, this URL at the very top here, you'll be able to vote your responses on here and let us know if you're currently using Office or Microsoft 365. So just go to the URL at the top or the text message option, which is just here, and you can start to vote on whether you're currently using Office or Microsoft 365. Give it a minute or so while we let people log on and just provide the vote. Okay, a couple of votes starting to come in now. Okay, so I think it looks like the majority of people are currently using Office 365. A couple of people have said no. So if we jump over, we can talk through the licensing and hopefully give you an update on what's changed around that section. So there was two key licenses when Microsoft launched. There was the Office 365 range of licenses, and they had a license called the Office 365 Business Premium. And alongside that, they have an Office 365 E3 license. The Office 365 Business Premium is designed for small and mid-sized companies that are up to 300 users. It includes the Office installation on up to 5 devices, and then all of the platform products we're going to show you today. Recently, this has been renamed to Microsoft 365 Business Standard, and they're basically naming all of their licenses, hopefully to make it a bit easier. There'll be a bit of confusion while we do that. The Office 365 E3 licenses are basically aimed at enterprises, and they're also aimed at organizations that were using remote desktop environments. If you had an RDS environment, you'd need the version of Office that's included in this one. This license also includes some additional compliance tools as well. Microsoft then released the EM&S security add-ons. So EM&S E3 basically adds some additional security bolt-ons to the platform, and then EM&S adds some additional features to that as well. So this is basically around securing your Office 365 environment. More recently, Microsoft released the Microsoft 365 range of licenses. And the aim of this is to provide a simpler naming standard. So as I mentioned, Office 365 Business Premium has now been renamed to Microsoft 365 Business Standard. And there's a new license here, which is called the Microsoft 365 Business Premium. And what this does is it encompasses all of the Office 365 tools, and it also includes the Microsoft 365 security add-ons. So it includes a whole host of tools like Intune, Azure AD, which can vastly improve the security of your environment. So if you're currently using a legacy license like the Office 365, then you will want to look at investigating an upgrade to this plan because of all the security benefits that it offers. From a SharePoint perspective, we'll get 1 terabyte of storage available in the platform. So shared across Teams and SharePoint, we'll have 1 terabyte of storage, and every licensed user that you have on the platform will also add then an additional 10 gigabytes onto the platform too. So quite a huge amount of storage. So what we're going to do is just jump into a live demonstration of SharePoint and give you an idea of how this works and what it can be utilized for. So the screen that I'm sharing at the moment is basically a landing page of SharePoint Online. So this is a communication site, and the whole idea around this is to provide a very visual and easy to use user experience for the user. I always say to organizations that this first page is, if I'm a new organization in the organization, it should be immediately apparent on how I can find my different applications that I use, how I can find different team areas and apps and all that kind of stuff. So this first page here is very much revolved around making it a very simple experience for a new starter. And effectively, what we're doing is building an intranet in here. Now, we've got links to policies, we've got links to relevant news articles, and we've got links to applications, which we'll go through as we go through today as well. We have the ability here to add company news. So this is a really easy to use feature. So I see here I've got articles around COVID-19, working from home. I could put things like new starters on there. Down the right hand side then, I've got things like weather. I've got a countdown timer. I've got a Twitter feed showing the kind of latest news to our employees about what we're publishing outside of the organization. We can have a feed here that shows the latest policy documents as they update and change. We can include upcoming events. And then right down the bottom here, again, we've got some more links. And this page can be really tailored to whatever you'd like to see. So we've got another example here of what's called a sidebar lock. And the sidebar lock has basically got a very large banner across the top for showing the news. And then down the right hand side, we've got similar type of things. So we've got things like unread policies, we've got most recent documents, and another Twitter feed and key applications. So this page can be laid out however you guys would like, and we can help you guys tailor that to what you'd like to see. So just on how easy this is to update as well, if I was to look to add some company news on the page, I can choose a company link. So this news link here basically means if I find an article on the internet that I want people to see, so I could perhaps come into the BBC here and find an article that I want to use. So we'll use this pizza article. I can then choose the news link, and I can simply paste that link into here. And what that does then is it scrapes the page. It automatically takes the picture. It puts some title in for me, and it puts a description in there, which I can change as well. An interesting article. So really simple, just to share news that I want other people to see in the organization without having to craft a massive post and do all of that kind of thing. The next thing that we can do is kind of news post. So this is kind of crafting a story that's perhaps I want to tailor it to the organization. I might be doing a new starter post. So we can have different templates that are available here. I've got some bespoke templates that we've set up, and Microsoft have got some built-in templates here, like this visual one, which is quite good. I can then choose create page, and we can do a new starter post. And then as we scroll down, then we can have things like text on the web page, and we can start to put information like Hugh has joined, and so on and so forth. So you can see how easy and very simple it is to update this page. It's not requiring a huge IT knowledge. It's very much like using Microsoft Word, and people can get started with this straight away. As we scroll down, we've got kind of articles on this page that are related to COVID-19. So similar to how I created the news article, I'm also able to create a page up in the top right hand corner. So a news article is obviously for something that's going to be frequent and change, like news starters, announcements, that kind of thing. Whereas a page can be used for creating static information. So my COVID-19 planning page here is a key link on the top of the page. And I'm trying to make it easy for people to find information related to COVID-19. So what happens is when I click on this page, I've got a statement around this and some information around what we're planning around the COVID-19. I've got some useful links on the right-hand side to help people find like relevant articles and that kind of thing. We're able to bring in related news. So I can actually pull in articles that I created on the home page and do a filter to say, bring me all the articles that are related to COVID-19. And further down then, I've got some resources and I've got some comments that people have put in there that they can like and share as well and provide feedback on. So this kind of using SharePoint is very easy to use. It's a fantastic place to store information and that kind of thing. Across the top here, we've got a hub, what's called a hub navigation. So this basically means I've got a big navigation area where I'm able to flick through and I'm able to go to like team areas and applications and stuff. And the idea of this bar is it always remains on the page, no matter what page I go to. So if I go to Teams, so these are SharePoint team areas, and I've got one here called Compliance Department. As I've been to this page, you'll notice the bar across the top stays the same, so I can easily get back to the home page, or I can jump into a different app if I want to. Now, the Compliance Department has a page set up here. Now, we always say that SharePoint, if you think about having SharePoint as an open platform, so we use it to share information. So the idea of this compliant department page is that everybody in the organization has access to this page. It's not restricted to compliance only. Compliance are using this page to share information they want other people to have access to. So they've got things like frequently asked questions. So the whole concept of this is reduce the amount of administration requests that that department gets. Instead of emailing compliance as the first point or marketing, the members of staff can come to this page and they can answer their own questions and hopefully reduce kind of how much time spent answering those questions. So we've got frequently asked questions. We've kind of got compliance members, so who the key people to contact would be. They're sharing links that they want people to have access to. So there's links to different areas. They've got some documents like guides, instructions, processes, and templates. And they've got some videos that they're sharing, which might be informational videos as well. So this page, again, is open to everybody. So from compliance can share information that they want from that perspective. We could have marketing, could be storing branding materials and logos and all that kind of information. And then all the other departments are able to set up similar pages there. And that whole idea of this is to just make information easy to find and make it more accessible for people. Alongside SharePoint, we then have Microsoft Teams. So the concept of Microsoft Teams we covered in a lot more detail on one of our previous sessions. So I would advise that you jump into that to get a much more detailed overview. But in the context of how this can work with SharePoint, we have here a list of all the teams that I'm a member of. So if finance have created a SharePoint page that everybody has access to, that's where they would publish information. So templates, forms, everything they want people to have access to, they would put in their finance SharePoint page. Teams is kind of the reverse of that. So teams, they would set up a team for their department. And within this, they would know that only the people in finance would have access to it. So it's restricted to only show the finance members. And the whole concept of this platform is it's designed to improve communications and perhaps reduce internal emails. So within here, I'm able to jump in and I can tag someone. So I can do an @team post, which basically will notify the whole team. And I can say, where are we up to on month end? I could tag individuals, so I could just tag Chris and say, how are we getting on with the report? And so on and so forth. So ultimately, this post section is about reducing the amount of internal emails that are sent and streamline communications. Down the left-hand side, we've got the ability to have different tabs. So you can see here, I've got an accounting tab. So these are called channels. And what I'm able to do is basically split the communications up and also provide a separate files area, which we'll cover off in a second. I can also have a private channel, which is what this little padlock means. So I can create a restricted area within a team. So that means that only certain people can see the posts and files from finance. So it'd just be a subset of those people in this team. Within the team itself, we also have the files section. So actually what Teams is ultimately it's a SharePoint front end. So what we're able to do is actually go into a SharePoint site for this team. But as I said to you before, it's kind of restricted. It's not open to everybody. It's just merely where the files are stored, and we can access those files from this platform. Once a file is stored within SharePoint or Teams, we get a few new functionalities that are quite handy. So from within Teams or SharePoint, I've got this sync option. And what will happen is when I click that sync option, it creates a copy on my PC. So you'll see here, I've now got a folder here called Demo Finance. And as I jump into Demo Finance, I can see all the files that I've currently got synced. So I've got a dark green tick here, which means that that's files available offline. I've got a cloud icon, which means that that's only accessible when I have an internet connection. But what I can do is I can right click on this and I can choose always keep on this device, and that will then create a copy on my PC. So effectively, you're able to move away from a file server infrastructure, and you can start to utilize things like SharePoint to store your files, and you can use Microsoft Teams to have those restricted files as well. We get some cool things as well once the file's in SharePoint or Teams. So once the file's stored in here, I've got kind of auto save in the top left-hand corner. So this file will automatically save as I make changes to it. We've got a drop down here, and I can choose version history. And that means I can go back to previous versions of the file very easily and open that file back up and restore it back to how it was if I need to. I can also share. So within this section in the top right hand corner, I'm able to share, and I've got a few different options depending on how the permissions are set up. I can do anyone with a link, which basically will enable anyone to access that file without having to sign in. I can choose people in organization with a link, which basically means that I can send it to somebody internally and they'll have access. Or I can choose specific people, and you'll see I can do things like I can disable their editing and block their downloads. So I could give them a view only. Specific people just allows you to type in their email address. So I could put in my Gmail account in there, and you can see here it's warning me that Hugh Valentine is outside of the organization. So that's just indicating I'm sharing this externally. When the file's opened in SharePoint, as people open this, I've got my picture in the top right hand corner here, but as multiple people start to open this file, their pictures will appear here, and we're all then able to work and edit on this file at the same time. So it just allows us to do real-time collaboration on the file. There's a whole host of things that are available within this platform. So obviously we did a much more detailed session on Microsoft Teams, but there's things like the ability to have a wiki, and we can then add different tabs available across the top. One thing that may be of interest is we can also pin our SharePoint intranet as a tab to the left-hand side. So what that basically does is it opens up the intranet for us as well and makes it very quick and easy to access the files within the Teams interface. So you can see I can see my intranet and access everything from within Teams. So to kind of summarize, the SharePoint teams are really good for making it easy to share information. So have an open platform in which we're creating things like a marketing page, and then marketing can share information around the organization and do that kind of thing. We then have the Microsoft Teams areas, which are good for the restricted ways of working. So rather than having a file server and sending emails back and forth, you can look at Microsoft Teams to help replace that functionality. The next thing that SharePoint can provide with another two products, which are called Power Apps and Power Automate, are basically the ability to replace and develop your own applications. So we've got a whole host of applications here that are available to us, and we're going to cover off a few of these and just give you ideas of what's available. Now, things like the ISO, the leave request and expenses, we've developed these applications, and they're basically available as add-ons that you can purchase directly from ourselves. But also the idea of these is to give you an idea of what the capabilities of the platform are. So if you have a bespoke manual process and you'd like to look at automating that, you can use SharePoint Power Apps and Power Automate to do so. So if we jump into our first one here, which is ISO. So the whole idea of this ISO area is it's basically a document management system. So it can be used for ISO standards like 9001, 27001, and that kind of thing. But it can also be used for just normal document management like policies and that kind of thing. Now, this first page that we come to is simply an index. It's like a handbook of the ISO 9001 policy. And what we can do is at the very top here, we can share this with somebody. So if I've got an auditor that's coming to audit this, I can just share that with them directly, and they're able to come into this page and basically self-audit without you having to give them loads of weird credentials and stuff. In the background of this, we have a document library. So this has got things like data protection policies, IT policies, that kind of thing. And then alongside that, we've then got some additional metadata. So we have review date, reviewer, approval date, and approver. So effectively what that means is on this date every year, the data protection policy will notify the reviewer, which is Peter Toole. So he gets an email to say it's time to review the document. He can then make any changes that he needs to. And you'll notice at the very top here, I've got this submit for approval button. So when he's ready, he can hit the submit for approval button, and that then comes to the approver, which is myself in this case, and I can stamp those changes off to say that they're good and I'm happy with them. So on the right-hand side, we've got some interesting things. We've got approval status, which basically tracks whether they're approved, rejected, or in draft. If I was a normal user that didn't have the ability to view or edit these documents, I would only see these as all approved documents. I wouldn't be able to see rejected and drafts. This just shows the user only the approved latest version of that document. So it means from a policy management perspective, you don't have lots of duplicates. You don't need to have an area to work on the drafts and an area then to publish them. They're all in the same place. The version numbers. Every time I make a change to the file, this will increment. So as I make changes to this file, it'll become 16.5, 16.6, and so on and so forth, until I'm ready to actually submit that for approval. And once that does go through an approval process, this becomes what's called a major version. And that major version will be version 17. So any major versions are the things that the end users are able to see. So the current major version for this is version 16. And what I can do is I can click into the version history of this document, and I'm able to see all of the comments that have been made throughout the approval lifecycle of this document as it's been sent through approvals, rejections, all that kind of thing. So it's very easy to track and trace the policy. Similarly, when this does get approved, we then have what's called a policy tracker. So this then sends an email to every single member of staff and says it's time to read the data protection policy. So we can see that everybody's read this policy apart from Faye. And we then have some power automation in the background that will be reminding Faye that she needs to do that, which can even escalate to Faye's line manager if she hasn't done it after a week or 2 weeks, whatever you'd like to define. So this is kind of one process. It's our built-in pre-packaged policies type ISO system. But you can have any kind of approval process. So anywhere where you have manual approvals and manual processes at the moment, this is able to automate and replace those kind of processes. These documents here are all kind of Word documents. Now, this is kind of an older way now of storing policies. So what I've got here is an example of a policies page. The policies page basically is a modern policy. So because SharePoint's so interactive and user-friendly, we've moved all of the content of the policy. So we've got the manual handling policy here. Down the left-hand side is all the text that I'd have with the policy. On the right-hand side, though, we've still got a downloadable copy, so we can still have a download if we need to. We've got this video. So I would say that people are much more likely to watch this 2-minute video than read all of this text. So it's more interactive. And we even have a manual handling quiz, so we can actually test their knowledge. So if I've read that properly, I should get full marks. But as you can see here, I've got 2 wrong out of 3. And this could then notify the policy owner to say, Hugh's failed this exam. Even at the bottom as well, we can have comments. So you can see how many people have viewed the policy. We can have people comment on it. So if something isn't clear, you can get feedback on that. And you can even then tag colleagues in for them to provide feedback as well. SharePoint's got a mobile app. So everything that I'm showing you today can be accessed on a mobile phone. So I've shrunk this down to be almost like a mobile sort of shape, iPhone type shape. And as I scroll through the policy, you'll see the page is all resized and I can access all the same content. So if you've got people out and about in the field who are on the move, we can use this functionality to basically make it very easy for them to access this data, no matter what device they're on. So that's kind of our ISO policy system. We've then got our employee details system. So this again is a very simple process that's usually quite manual in organizations. And this one basically simply helps with the onboarding and offboarding process for employees. So when I hit the new button, I've got a very simple form, which has things like their department, their name, their manager. So we basically fill this form in when we have a new starter. That then sends an email. And it's got two checklists. So it's got an employee checklist. So this employee, Steve, has got these 5 actions to do on day 1. So he'll have 5 emails when he starts in his inbox to go read the health and safety policy, to do the staff handbook. And he can mark those off as complete as he's done each one. It also sends an employer checklist, which can send emails to multiple people and multiple departments. So that's about notifying finance to set them up in a payroll system, notifying IT or a third party IT like ourselves to set up their accounts. So it's all about tracking both what the employee needs to do when they start and also what the employer needs to do when they start, and put it all in one place and then visually see what's going on. We've got kind of like training portal. So the training portal basically is just a simple page really that has things like the information, like links to different applications. It has upcoming training courses, documents we want to share. And then we've integrated something called Stream, which basically has some video content that we're able to jump into and view as well. So this is just another use case. And generally when we do SharePoint projects with our clients, we're deploying these in as part of our intranet. So we're including things like SharePoint downloads and Teams training materials. It can also be extended. So we've kind of got a simple training matrix here. And this is just simply tracking who's done each of the training accreditations, when they expire, and if it's been completed. So again, just to give you ideas of things you might be using Excel for or manual processes. We have similar, again, to the ISO, a contracts management type area. So this just simply has a nice page that we can come into that has news about different contracts. It has who's responsible for the contracts and relevant links like policies and templates that we'd use for those things. We've then got upcoming contract renewals. So we can see that visually on here and then even add them to my calendar. And if I jump into the My Contracts page, I can see all the contracts that are currently in the system, when they're effective from, when we need to cancel them, if we are going to cancel them, and when they actually expire, and then a visual representation to see the ones that are active, due for review, and the ones that we've actually cancelled off. So again, just more use cases for where SharePoint can be very, very powerful. So those are kind of SharePoint applications, and that's just making use of the functionality that we have in SharePoint. And we've also covered off a bit about Power Automate, where we've shown how we could do automated reviews and send approval emails across. We then have a platform called Power Apps. So the whole idea of Power Apps is effectively to create visual and dynamic applications that can be accessed on a PC, a Mac, or mobile phones as well. So this first one here is the leave request system. So we can jump into this and I can hit the leave request app. And as I said, there's an app available on my phone. So this leave request I can download from the App Store. And what it does then is it simply allows users to come in and request holidays. So I can see here in my example system, I've got a list of all the holidays that are currently available. I can hit create request in the top and I can do things like I'm going to submit a holiday and I can say I'm going to book off a week. And you can see here it's automatically showing my current balance and how many days I'll have off after I've finished this holiday as well. I can put log sickness, authorized absence, working from home, all that kind of stuff. Down the left-hand side, I've got a leave balance page, which shows how many days I've got available this year and next year, and how many days I've taken, and who my manager would be to approve those as well. I've also got a company's holiday section, which would show all of the bank holidays that we have in the system, and obviously any Christmas shutdowns and stuff. And that kind of, when I'm submitting a holiday on here, this system will automatically take into account bank holidays and Christmas and stuff as well. So that's an example of a Power App. We've got lots of different pre-built Power Apps. So we've got a leave request system. We have an expenses system. We then have kind of very simple ones where we're able to do kind of applications that can replace pieces of paper in an organization as well. So this is an example of a hazard spotting application. So what you can see here is I've got hazard type, I've got shift, I've got a description of the hazard, and I have the capability to take a picture. So this has replaced what used to be a very manual process where the health and safety chap was walking around a factory, identifying hazards and writing them down in his clipboard. He'd come back to the office and then he'd send an email out to everybody that was involved to say that I've spotted these hazards. Now he's got an app on his phone. He can identify the hazard type, what shift it was on, take a picture, and that instantly then notifies the department to say, here's the hazards, and raises a corrective action with them to deal with those. So that's an example of a very simple Power App, and this doesn't take a huge amount of time to develop. We're talking a couple of days to kind of replace a paper version and build this automated one. We then have the ability to create much more complicated Power Apps as well. So I've got here an auditing application. So this application again has a nice homepage, so it's for inspections and audits. Again, as I scroll down, we can see who the owners are of this application. We can have news articles that people are interested in. We've got some suggest an idea on this page as well, but you can see that this page is just designed to make a nice user experience for the user. We then have this process inspection app. And what this has replaced is, again, we had an organization that had a large A3 piece of paper on the end of a factory floor. And what would happen at the end of every shift is that person who was closing out the shift would have to go through a list of checks to say they've done the various checks on the line to make sure everything's safe and secure and ready for the next person. So they'd fill this in on a piece of paper. They'd then take this piece of paper to the office, and someone was then transposing this to a Excel report. So really inefficient. Obviously the checks were getting done, but there's a lot of time spent in basically printing those pieces out, then transposing it to Excel and doing the reports. Now they've got a tablet at the end of the line, a very cheap tablet that's just bolted onto the end of the line. And they basically come into here and say, right, we're doing a new audit. And they're presented then with the list of questions and checks they need to go through. So is the line clean, in order, and the working environment safe? They select this. And we've then developed this app that's replaced this piece of paper. So they go, there's no parts on the ground, the line is clean, so on and so forth. If they then come across an issue, they're able to select not okay. And they then have a corrective action that can be raised. So we can raise it for the owner who should do it. That could be automated. Perhaps it could automatically assign to the next person on shift, when it needs to be completed by, what the action is, and what the details that need to be fixed. So that means the next person who comes onto the app now can see a list of all the open actions that are available on here. So component issues, returning clean equipment, and they can then mark those off and commence with their shift. So this basically provides us a very simple app that replaces a very manual process. Within the actual data, so as someone fills in those apps, we then have this audits tab here. And this lists all of the audits that have happened. So is the line clean? Yes. The dates and time, the site they were done, and when they were completed. So we're logging all that information into a database. The actions that are raised are also logged into a database, so we can see who's raised them, who's responsible, when they were done. And then we can use a report section here. So within this platform, we're able to see how many audits have been completed this month, the audits by actions, by status, and how many audits are raised typically each month as well. So this page is just giving us a very quick snapshot of the audits that are raised. And this is using something called Power BI, where we're able to create very visual and interactive forms and processes. This is a very simple Power BI report. So that's kind of an example of a Power App in which we've custom developed something from the ground up and replaced a manual process. Those could also be, for example, to replace a project process. So what we have here is a very bespoke project management tool. So again, we've got a nice SharePoint homepage that's got things like news, but in the background of this, we've got applications. And what we're able to do is if we jump into a new application, so these are projects and there's different phases for those projects. And the form that we've created basically has a list of all of the project information, so who the manager is, who the assessor is, the details about the project. And then down the left-hand side, there's a gated checklist. So for this project to progress, we go from this phase to the next one. And then as we click into each phase, we're able to mark this off. So as it progresses through, we can basically mark this off and approve. So this was a very bespoke project management tool we created for a company that couldn't find something that met their needs. And we've even developed things like a comment history about what's been going on with the project and an alert section where key things have happened in the project as well. So that's kind of applications that are available. We've got loads of them. So I won't go through them all, but for example, staff directory can replace a phone book. We can develop a visitors system. So instead of having a third-party application where visitors check in at reception, we're able to create a visitors log and a visitors system. We've got a donation form. So this one we worked on with a charity who were basically collecting donations for their volunteers on pieces of paper, but nobody could actually read those pieces of paper when they came back to the office. So now they have a digital form that the volunteers have where they can put things like the name, address, they can get the person to sign it, and then that automatically logs the data into a database, which then means they don't have to worry about if they can read the text or not anymore. Another example kind of is the ability to kind of build like a knowledge base. So this page here has got different categories of a knowledge base, and the whole concept of this is we're able to jump into different categories. So I can jump into market analysis, I can see the subcategories for this section, I can jump into market map, and this then is a knowledge article in which we have text on the left hand side. So it's got things like why it's important, what it means, who the owners of these toolkits are. And then down the right hand side, we have downloadable information and related toolkits. So that's kind of the apps that are available within the platform. We then also have the ability for creation of a customers type area. So if you wanted to have an extranet where you could share information with your customers, or rather than this being called customers, it could be used for storing project information. So all of your projects could come into here. So again, we have news, we have links for the customers like onboarding policies, SLAs, templates for proposals. So again, we're just making it easy for people. Down the bottom, we then have a list of all of the projects or customers. And each of those projects or customers then has a dedicated site. So I'm able to jump into the Acme site, and I can see that this has got its own branding, it's got its own documents, and I'm actually able to share this portal with a client if I want to, so they can come in and view the news and documents and provide a simple extranet. But if you guys are currently managing projects, we've done a lot of automation where we can fill this form in. So we're filling in a new project form. And what we can do then is we can automatically, using Power Automate, create a Microsoft Team area or create a document area with a set list of templates. So there's lots of things we can do if you're perhaps running projects where you're copying and pasting folders manually each time a project's kicked off. We can then use this kind of new form to automate a lot of those processes and create templates for you automatically. We even have a visual representation down the bottom. So this is something one of our clients asked for, where they wanted to see their projects on a map and then be able to jump into those projects by clicking the button as well. So that's kind of another use case for SharePoint. So that's kind of an overview of basically the Power Platform and SharePoint Online. So there's lots of use cases that are available to us of how we can utilize this. If we jump back into the presentation, lots of organizations ask, what are the common steps on how do we get to use SharePoint Online, and how do we build that kind of platform? So the demonstration that I've showed everybody today, we can run that demonstration with multiple people. So quite often what we'd recommend is to look at getting the department heads and their champions onto an overview of SharePoint. And the aim of that overview of SharePoint basically is to show your organization and the key people within it what the functionalities are and what the key features are. And what we'd like to get from that is a bullet point list of what each department feels would be the most useful for them. So by the end of the demonstration that we can do, we would like them to say, well, we're doing this very manual approval process at the moment, and it would save us a lot of time if we were to go through that process. Or the leave request system, something we're doing currently manually using calendars and Excel, and that would save us a lot of time. And that then forms the basis for a workshop. So the workshop then is a paid day, which can be held remotely now or on site when we're able to travel. And the idea of that then is to sit down with each of those department heads and champions and create a specification. So everything that I've showed you today is definitely possible, but for your organization to get to that, it's going to take time, and it's going to be a journey. So what we need to do is we need to use the workshop to scope out the requirements. And then on the back of that workshop, we would recommend a phased approach. So we're looking in phase 1 for is there something really low hanging fruit there? Is there something that's going to save your organization a load of time? If there is, we could look to implement that in phase 1. And then obviously that gives you an understanding of how this platform works. You're not spending a huge amount of money to ensure that there's a return on investment. And then we can look at further phases then to continue adding new features and functionality. So quite often our approach is very much phased approaches. And the other benefit to our phased approaches is we're then looking at upskilling your organization through each piece. So to get the most out of this platform, we're not looking to basically be the owners of SharePoint. What we want to do is train your organization so you guys can update, maintain, and start to develop and update this yourselves as well. And that then helps with adoption, and it really drives then people getting on the platform. So I think the next steps really would be, if you're interested and you'd like to do another demo, and you'd like to pull in more people from your organization, like the department heads and champions, we can definitely do that. And then that would lead to one of these workshops in which we can then sit down and scope out what you're going to do and how that could work. There's some useful links available. So these are kind of different links that we can help you get started. So the SharePoint Help and Learning has a whole host of training material and videos that'll cover off the kind of stuff that we've done today. The Microsoft Teams demo is a really good link that shows you from start to finish how Microsoft Teams can work, and it's very interactive. And then there's something called the SharePoint Lookbook, which has got a load of different examples of how SharePoint can look for different functions like departments, communications, intranets, that kind of thing. So I'd definitely take a look at those links. And then that takes us to the Q&As. So hopefully, Matthew, we've got some questions that people have had from the back of this. I think you may be muted, Matthew, but I'll just jump into the questions and see if anybody would like to post a question. You should have a Q&A function available to you on the right-hand side, where you can post any questions that you have based on SharePoint or anything else that I've been through today. We've had a couple of questions from people which are that they missed the start of the webinar, or they have had people that weren't able to attend, and will this be recorded? So yes, the webinar will be recorded, and we'll be providing this as a video that you can download after the event. So we will send that over to everybody. We've not had any other questions as of yet, so we'll give it perhaps another 30 seconds and see if there's any other questions. Okay, well, it doesn't look like we've got any further questions today, but if you would like to get in touch, if you've got any questions after this that we didn't answer, or you're more interested in looking at booking a further demo, then please get in touch and we'd be happy to help. One question that's just dropped through quickly at the end is SharePoint a new way of working? SharePoint's been around for quite a while, so it's not a new product, it's very established in the market. I think utilizing SharePoint as an intranet is becoming much more popular. And I think the Microsoft Teams product that I showed earlier, that is very much a new way of working. And that is your key application of looking at improving your communications and streamlining your, removing internal emails and streamlining your business processes. But there's lots of things coming to SharePoint and Microsoft 365 that enable the new modern way of working. Okay, Matthew, anything to add? All right, guys, well, thank you very much for joining. If anybody does have any questions that we weren't able to go through, just get in touch. But thank you for joining the webinar today and hope to see you soon. Thank you all.